Hey there guys, how's it going? Reaper here, and I'm back with another painting video. And it's already off the screen. That's a good start. There we go. This is Agramon, the Duke of Hell, and he's a big mini. Like, as you can tell already, this is a longer video than normal because I wanted to put some effort into it. But also this mini is probably twice the size of the last devil that I did. And he is well worth it though. This was a stretch goal and an add-on for the Kickstarter for the Reaper Bone set. So if you have this, congrats, you got it. If not, well, enjoy the video anyway. We've started off with Necromancer's Cloak, and this is for all of the horns, the spikes on the spine, claws on the wings, and his fingernails and toenails. And there we go, that's it for Necromancer's Cloak. Now we're moving on to Dark Stone, and this is the first layer of sort of the leathery part of the wings, like the non-bone parts essentially of the wings. And Dark Stone is a good base layer for getting to the leather brown that they're going to finish up at, and it helps as well to add more paint on, because the red paint on this is not the greatest to work with. Now, I find with army painters primers, they tend to go on quite thick, and if you leave them for too long, they don't really work as a primer, as paint doesn't really stick to it too well. But that could well just be the way I'm doing it, because everyone else seems to not have this issue. But if you do have this issue, the best way to actually fix that is to grab some matte varnish or something and just smother it in that, let it dry, and then you have a layer to paint on. As matte varnish does kind of work as a primer, just colourless. And there we go, that is it for the wings. Now we're moving on to rough iron, which is just for his sword, as this guy is basically skin and wings with a sword. That is basically it for this entire mini, but he's a massive mini, so you have to put some effort into the skin, otherwise it's not going to look amazing. It'll just be a big red ball floating around. Now, as you can see there as well, I've managed to rub off the paint on the heels because, like I find with a lot of Army Painters primers and Reaper Bones minis, not the best sort of, what's the word I'm looking for, like stick. It just doesn't stick as well. You can rub it off if you put enough force into it, and I've kind of been holding it with that, touching that. We've just moved on to Banshee Brown as well, which is just for the teeth. As I was saying, yeah, if you rub a certain area of a mini, like you get a bit too rough with it, it will take the primer off. So just be aware of that. That's why I try to keep them on the paint holders, but this guy is so heavy, he actually just falls off of it if I don't hold the base itself as well. There we go, that is the teeth done. Now it's mythical orange, and this is just for the eyes. And this is the first color for the eyes as well. There will be a few more coming as we go, but mythical orange is just the first base layer of the eyes. There we go. It's a new day, as it took me that long to get all that done. I had to move on to another day. We're now on to Dungeon Grey, which is the first highlight of the Necromancer's Cloak. As you can tell with these horns, I'm almost dry brushing it, but I'm also picking out certain areas to make sure they get touched up. But a good dry brush in a situation like that actually works really well for the highlights. And if you're not doing any other highlights after that, it's perfect. It's the best way to get a bit of variation and still pick up all the higher areas, so you can give it a good highlight. There we go, that was the last of the Dungeon Grey. Now we're moving on to Leather Brown, and we are dry brushing Leather Brown all over the wings. And it's quite a light dry brush, like I've barely got anything on the brush except for when I'm doing the base of the wing, as I don't want this anywhere in the recesses, because it will just remove a lot of that whole leathery textured feel and just be brown. There we go, that is it for the leather brown dry brush. Now we're on to gunmetal, and this is just a dry brush on the sword, as it's got a good rough iron look, but it's a metal sword, so a bit of sort of metallic silvery look. It looks a bit more worn and used, as this guy is definitely going to be cleaving some things up in hell. There we go. Now we're moving on to pure red, and this is for raised areas of the skin, as the base color that I prime this in is dragon red. So pure red is the next layer up, which isn't a big jump, but it works pretty well as a highlight before the wash comes along. So this is just raised areas of the skin and his scales sort of things. There we go, that is pure red done. And now we're back to leather brown, as I changed my mind on what color I wanted this to be. It was originally going to be desert yellow as the base layer, but I've gone for leather brown. And this is I make this look a lot harder to paint than it actually is, because it took me a while to realize, oh, I can see it between his legs, so I can paint through there. I kept trying to twist and really bend it, try and do whatever I can just to get into the underside of this guy's tail. As you can see there, it's just all that area can easily be seen from between his legs, which I think probably about now, or just after this layer, I realised, oh, it's easy. See there, it's like, oh, I can just paint straight into there instead of trying to bend the mini into the shape I wanted. But that was it for leather brown. Now we're demonic yellow, and this is another layer on the eye just to bring it up and make it sort of pop that bit more, as mythical orange was nowhere near enough for that. And then we're on to crusted sore. This is just internals of the mouth, just to separate that from the red of the actual skin. And then it's cobalt skin for the dry brush onto the tail, which I do come back and do another colour after the washes, but before the wash this just gave it that highlight that you need. Okay, now on to first wash, which is strong tone for all of the wings. I do believe I also do all the spikes and the necromancer's cloak colours and dungeon grey, of course, with the highlight, just to give it that sort of separation from the skin. It's still part of his body, but it has to look different, otherwise it's just not going to look right. I do also do strong tone on the sword. There we go, that is strong tone done. Now we're moving on to red tone, which is for everything else on this mini. As like I said earlier, there's only about 4 colours on the actual mini, and not including highlights of course. There we go. That is red tone complete. Now leave that to dry. I left mine overnight to dry as there was a lot of wash. And then we're coming back with Dragon Red, which is the base color. And we're going to dry brush this all over the scaly parts of his skin. There we go, that is Dragon Red done. Now we're on to Phoenix Flames, which is yet another layer to go onto the eyes. Just because all of the yellowy colours, like the orange and the yellows and some of the lighter reds, are fairly transparent. So when you start combining them like this, you get a nice sort of vibrant yellow with a good surround. Now that's done, we're back to gunmetal on the sword. And this is a much lighter dry brush, just to pick up those edges, as of course when you wash something it removes a lot of the metallic sheen, so this just adds that shine back to the edge of the sword. Then it is Banshee Brown for the final highlight of the underside of his tail, and this is just to make it sort of pop that bit more. It looks a little bit different, as it should do. And now we're on to Pure Red, which is another dry brush for the skin. This one's obviously a much lighter dry brush, as we don't want Pure Red to overpower the Dragon Red we've just done. And this is just to pick up all those ultra raised edges, just to make it pop out that bit more. There we go, that is it for the highlight on the skin. Now we're on to Uniform Grey, and this is just the final dry brush on all of the sort of Necromancer's Cloak bony horns areas. Okay, now we're on to the final part of the eyes now, which is just coming back with the demonic yellow, and being as transparent as it is, just stays in the center of the eye, luckily enough. So you got that sort of glowy surround and then the bright yellow pupil, which is what you want for a demon. But that is it for this mini now. It took a while. I think altogether it was probably 3 to 4 hours worth of painting to get this to here. And then we're just doing the base as we normally do. Pure matte black. I was tempted to do more on the base, but the mini is so basic as it is. If I do a nice base, I think it would draw too much away from the mini. But of course, if you're doing a display piece or you want something to look really fancy, then by all means do the base. It'll just need a dry brush of dark stone and some ash grey. Would work great for that sort of base. Or if you want to go a bit more darker, leave it red as the main base, dry brush yellow over it, and then dry brush black over the very tops of the rocks to give it sort of a lavery molten look. But that is it for this mini. It seemed like there's a lot more steps than it needed to be, but all those different dry brushes and highlights and things, although they went over the same areas, didn't catch the same places, so it's got a lot of variation in the skin, which gives it a lot more sort of realistic looking skin tone. And of course, if you're going to do this base, I would recommend not gluing the mini down first, because he doesn't come on the base. You can take him off, which just makes life so much easier because it's so fiddly to get underneath there. There we go, that is it. That is the mini complete, and as you can see from the pictures, lots of different colour skin is essentially all this mini was, and some nice leathery wings. But if you did enjoy this video, please like, subscribe if you did, and I will catch you soon in the next video. See ya.